There are lots of ways to add integers. Sometimes you do it on paper, and sometimes you've come up with a way in your head that works. Don't fight that. Whatever works for you, use, but I will show you a couple methods. The first method we'll learn is one where you use a number line, and the second method we'll learn is one where you just use rules that you have to memorize. So we'll start with something familiar, which is 1 plus 8. Now you already know that's 9, but if we wanted to use a number line to show how to do it, we start with our first digit here, which is 1. So I will place my number on 1. And because we're making it more positive, we're going to move to the right. Right will make things more positive. And I put my pencil on the 1 and I just jump it 8 places to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and you can see you end up on 9. Now when you're adding two negative numbers together, there's a couple ways to think of this. You can think I'm adding more negatives or I'm getting more negative. Another way to think of it is -3 plus a -2. This part right here is the definition of subtraction, to add the opposite of some number. And so you could convert this in your head or on paper and see this problem is also -3 minus 2, whichever way works for you. And I'll have to explain them both when I do it on our number line here. So either way, we start with a -3 and we put our dot on that. If you're thinking of it this way in your head, you have to think I'm going to become more negative by 2 more. So you jump your pencil 2 places to the left because now you're more negative and you end up with that -5. If you're thinking of it this way, as -3 minus 2, well, whenever you subtract, in this case, when it looks like this, you move left. And so you're at your -3 and you move left too. They're very subtly different, but if you confuse this part, you're going to run into trouble. So if you're at -3 and you're getting more negative by -2, you can see in either one of these cases you're going to end up with a -5 being your answer. Let's try a couple more. I have -2 plus 8. Again, we always start by putting our first digit down, a circle on -2. And because it's going to become more positive, or that I'm adding 8, you move to the right. So you're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 places to the right, which ends you at a +6. 9 plus a -3, again, there's two ways of thinking about this. The first way is that you're at the number 9 and you're adding negatives to it, or you're taking away. So you're adding negatives, which means you're going to move to the left. 1, 2, 3. The alternate way of looking at it is that you're adding a negative number and this thing means subtraction. You're adding the opposite. So it's really 9 minus 3, the good old-fashioned problem you did when you were just starting out your math career. So 9 take away 3 gets you to 6 as well. If you don't like the way that feels, and again some people don't, we're going to learn another rule, and that is to add integers. Here's the rule when you're adding integers with the same sign. They can either both be positive as they are here, or they're both negative, but you need to understand that they have to be the same sign. The rule says that we need to simply add the two numbers and keep the sign in your answer the same. This really has to do with absolute value, but that's a more complicated definition. So we're just going to use the rule as simple as we can. We're going to take the 8 and add the 6 to it. And 8 plus 6 is 14. And what was the sign that we started with? Well, they're both positive. So we're going to keep that 14 positive. You can either put a plus sign down or not. Here I have two negative numbers. We're going to ignore the signs and we're going to look only at the digits themselves. 2 plus 7, well, that's 9. And the original numbers were both negative, so we need to keep the sign for the answer. Just like it says here, keep the same sign. Here are some more examples I'm going to go through. You can go through ahead of me or with me, but make sure you understand the rule. For all of these, number one, my signs are the same, they're both negative. So when you have the same signs for addition, you add the numbers and ignore the signs that they come with, really. So I'm going to look at 6 plus 4, and I know that's 10. And I'm going to write down the sign that they both had originally, which is negative. Second one, they're both negative. So I can add the numbers and then just write down the sign that they had to begin with. So I'm looking at the number 5 and the number 9. 9 plus 5 is 14, and they originally were both negative. So a negative 5 plus a negative 9 is a negative 14. Isn't this funny? 3 plus 7. You've been doing this forever, but sometimes when you learn the rule it gets a little more confusing. They're both positive, so you can add the numbers. 3 plus 7 is 10, and its answer will have the sign of the original numbers, and it was positive, so we'll just leave it without a sign. Negative 2 plus negative 8. Add the numbers, 2 plus 8 to get 10, and write down the common sign, which was negative. 7 plus 7, good old-fashioned. Don't let the new rule screw you up. They're both positive, so you add them together and write down the common sign, either with or without that plus sign. Negative 5 plus negative 5 will end up being a negative 10 using the rule. Adding integers with different signs. The rule is to subtract the two numbers, ignoring the signs again, do biggest minus the smallest like you always subtract, and then at the end your answer will have the sign of the greatest absolute value. Let's do an example. Negative 5 plus 9. The first thing to notice is your signs are different. The 5 is negative and the 9 is positive. But according to the rule, we look just at the numbers, ignore the signs. I need to do 9 minus 5. 9 minus 5 is 4. Once you've done that, you're going to look back at the signs. Which one would have a larger absolute value? Remember this idea in a previous video. The 9 would have the larger absolute value. And because the 9 is positive, you're going to keep your answer positive. There's your answer. Negative 5 plus 9 is 4. In the next example, you have 4 plus a negative 11. Your first job again is just to look at the numbers. 11 minus 4. 11 minus 4 is 7. That's your value for your number. Now we need to look at our signs. Which number is larger when you take its absolute value? Well, that would be this one. The absolute value of a negative 11 is a positive 11. And because this 11 had a negative sign to begin with, you're going to make your answer negative. Let's do some more examples. Here we're still adding numbers, but they have different signs. You can work ahead of me or work along with me. The rule is when your signs are different, you subtract the numbers and then give the answer the sign of the number that has the greatest absolute value. So I have negative 7 plus 5. My job is to subtract 7 minus 5. That's 2. Which number gives you the greatest absolute value? That would be this one, and it was negative. So my answer here will be a negative 2. Number 2. 10 plus a negative 12. Take the difference between the two numbers. That's 2. And which number would have the greatest absolute value? It's the 12. So because the 12 was negative, our answer will be negative 2. My numbers are off. I'll do number 4. Negative 9 plus 6. You subtract those two values. 9 minus 6 is 3. And because the negative 9 or 9 was your greatest value, it will become a negative answer to match the sign of 9. 6 plus a negative 2, subtract your values, you get a 4. And the 6 is the greater value when you take its absolute value, so your answer will stay positive. Now number 5 and 6 are order of operations problems. You're going to move left to right on number 5. And so you look at these two first. You have -3 plus 8. Those are different signs. So you subtract. 8 minus 3 is 5, and my sign will be positive because 8 is the bigger absolute value. And I'm going to write down the second number. I'm adding numbers with different signs, so I know I'm going to subtract. 5 plus a -9. So 9 minus 5 is 4, and 9, whoops, had the greater absolute value, so my sign will be negative for my answer. Number 6, again, order of operations matters, so I need to do inside the parentheses first. I have a -10 plus 15. Those are different signs. Different signs mean I need to subtract. So 15 minus 10 is 5, and my final answer will be positive because 15 has the larger absolute value. 4 plus 5, those signs are the same. So when your signs are the same, you just add and write the common sign, which is positive.